Okay, here we are. We are going to work on the second half of this video. And for the first swatch, I have the Stockinette one. And that is the one that I kind of modeled, you know, how to maybe color code your chart to kind of make things easier for you. But again, this pattern is an 8-stitch repeat and 16 rows tall. Now remember, you're not going to see rows 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on and so forth, because they are going to be basically mirror image of what you did on the right side. Okay, so since this is stockinette stitch, that means on the right side, the odd rows, I'm going to knit, and on the return rows, I'm going to purl. So I'm back at the beginning where I've got my contrast color, and I would knit, 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 slip, knit, 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 knit. Okay, and here would be the end of my repeat, and I have a stitch marker there. So another rule of thumb is if you just put stitch markers after whatever edge row you decide, and like for this swatch, I decided to do two patterns across, and I wanted 2 garter stitches on either end, so 8 plus 8 is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I cast on 20 stitches for this little swatch that I have here. So every time you change colors, you're going to start that row with your new color. So I finished row 16 with my main color, blue, and now I'm going to drop that. I'm going to hold it to the back, and I'm going to start with my new color, okay, which is my contrast. And one way that I like to do to switch it is to kind of hold this back to kind of keep it taut a little bit. And where my contrast came out of the last time I used it is right here. So to avoid a big pull, I like to give it a little pinch, and you can go ahead and start. So let's go ahead. I'm trying to do this through an iPad. So I'm going to knit my two garter stitches. Okay, slip my stitch marker. Okay, now I've got, according to my pattern, I've got knit 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next box is white. I'm going to slip it as if I'm going to purl. Okay, my yarn is in the back, and I've got 4 more stitches in my contrast color for that pattern. Okay, there's my 8 stitches. Slip your marker, and you're going to repeat it. So it actually makes it pretty easy. You know, once you do a couple of repeats, and if your project is like for a shawl or for 1, 2, 3, it just kind of makes it easy. You just kind of fly. You really have to pay attention to this first row, and then knit 4 in your contrast color. 3, 4. There, I'm at the end of that 8-stitch repeat. Slip my marker. I had 2 stitches in garter. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now on the return, because this is stockinette, when I get to the portion that has my pattern, I'm going to purl. But since I've got 2 garter stitches on the end, I'm going to go ahead and knit 2. Okay, now slip it. Okay, now here is where all you're going to do is you're going to purl the stitches that match the color of the yarn that you have in your hand. So these match, so I'm going to purl, 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 purl. Okay, this color doesn't match, and I'm just going to slip it as if to purl. My yarn is in the front because I'm doing stockinette, and so this is the purl row. So I'm going to continue, and you're not, you know, make sure you don't pull too awfully tight, and if you're too concerned about it being too snug, you can always kind of pull those 2 stitches. purl. My yarn's kind of tangled up here. Okay, I'm at the end of the repeat. I'm going to continue. Purl, 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 purl. Okay, I'm going to slip as if to knit. Purl, purl, purl. I'm at the end of the repeat and I'm back to the beginning. Flip my yarn around the front because these two stitches are going to be garter. Okay, so the next row I would be on my main color, which is right here, and that's the color that, or that's the row that I color coded. So I would drop this, kind of bring it around to the back, and then bring my new yarn to the front. Bring your working yarn to the front. Here it is. And then you would just continue. Okay, the other one I wanted to show you was how these same patterns, how these look different. Okay, this is in stockinette, this is in garter. So the difference is going to be how you hold your yarn on the even rows, on the wrong side of the rows. So I was just going to demo that for you real quick. I'm going to kind of bring this back. All right, I finished row, I'm at the same place. I finished row 16, and now I'm back to the beginning. Okay, I'm back to the beginning. So here's my main color. I finished that. I'm getting ready to do this one. So I'm going to kind of pinch it, get myself a little bit of yarn here. Again, I apologize that I'm kind of pulling it out of the sight of the camera. I'm working with an iPad. Okay, maybe just put it in my lap. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, all right, here we go. And the pattern's going to be the same. I'm just going to kind of give it a pinch, knit, knit. Okay, slip that marker. So according to the pattern, I've got 3 knits. 1, 2, 3. Whoops. And here I'm going to slip. And then when you're slipping it, that's going to elongate that stitch. And knit 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm at the end of the repeat. Slip your stitch marker and just repeat those 8 stitches. Knit 3, 1, 2, 3. Slip as if to purl. Okay, and just, keep it taut. You don't have to really tug too hard. And knit the last 4 stitches in that pattern. Okay, I'm at the end of that pattern. Slip my stitch marker. I've got my 2 garter stitch edges. Okay, here's going to be the difference when you do your reverse row on your wrong side. And again, you're only going to be working the stitches that match the color of the yarn that you're holding in your hand. So because this is going to be garter, that means all of the stitches that I just knit on the right side, I'm going to knit on the back side, but the difference is going to be where I hold my yarn when I go to slip the stitches. Okay, here we go. We're just going to go back across the row. Okay, those are my 2 garter stitches. Okay, now here I'm working backwards in the pattern. So knit, 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 knit. Okay, now when you slip this one, this time you have to bring your yarn to the front. Slip as if to purl. Bring it around to the front so that you can continue your garter. And the reason that you do that is if you didn't bring your yarn in garter stitch on the wrong side, if you didn't bring your yarn around to the front, I'm just going to kind of show you. what would happen. If you slipped it and then you continued knitting, you would have that bar across the front of that slip stitch on the right side of your fabric. So we're just going to kind of go back a little bit. Get that guy back here. Bring your yarn to the front. Slip as if to knit. See, you can see that little float from where I slipped it the last time. Bring it around to the back and finish your garter stitches. Slip, and I'm just going to knit these two because remember those two were in garter. Okay, so that's kind of showing you how to read the charts, kind of how to hold the yarn, where to hold it, you know, whether it's with the yarn in front or the yarn in back, and you can create different effects by switching the stockinette and the garter. If you go to Ravelry and just type in Mosaic under the search box under patterns, there will be several patterns that would pop up that utilize this technique. So it's a fun way to create color work without Fair Isle, without having those big long floats, because you're only using one color per row. So it's a lot of fun, and hope this helped. Okay, thank you very much.